Now, let us consider the views of H.H. the Dalai Lama. His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, who is the Tibetan Buddhist spiritual leader who was born in 1935, is another important personality who transcends Buddhism as religion by using insight attained from the Buddhist thought and practice itself. He is also one who supports equality of all religions insofar as their spiritual and moral aspects are concerned. One scholar of Dalai Lama, Dr. Bharati Puri, she observes that while the earlier Dalai Lama was less flexible and believed that Buddhism was the best way, the later Dalai Lama finds a larger concern in serving all humanity without appealing to religious faith. H.H. the Dalai Lama's work, Beyond Religion, Ethics for a Whole World, is his important contribution in this direction. In this work, he presents a conceptual scheme of what he calls secular ethics. Though many ideas and doctrines he uses in this scheme are rooted in Buddhist ethical and ontological principles, he does not present them in this book as Buddhist principles, but as secular humanistic principles. Moreover, he substantiates them wherever possible with scientific findings. He calls his ethics secular not in the sense of anti-religious, but in the sense that it implies a profound respect for and tolerance towards all religions. It also implies an inclusive and impartial attitude which includes non-believers also. In this, it follows Emperor Ashoka's exhortation in one of his inscriptions to honor others' religion, for doing so strengthens both one's own and that of the other. The Dalai Lama clearly acknowledges that his formulation of the ethics for a world is influenced by his own upbringing as a Buddhist monk in the Nalanda tradition. He says, "Since childhood I have been a Buddhist monk in the Tibetan Mahayana tradition. My understanding of ethics as well as of issues such as human nature and the pursuit of happiness is informed by this background. On a personal level, my everyday approach to the practice of ethics is profoundly influenced by the writings of the Indian Nalanda tradition, which combines critical philosophical inquiry with ethical living and contemplative practice. In the course of this book, I draw on some of the resources of the Nalanda tradition. However, in this book, he detaches the ethical principles from the Buddhist context and presents them as acceptable by all irrespective of their religious background. Though we generally associate spirituality with a religion, the basic human spirituality according to him is more fundamental than religion. He compares the two with water and tea respectively. Water is everybody's need, tea also contains water, but it also contains other ingredients like tea leaves and spices. Tea can be somebody's choice, but it is not everyone's need. Similarly, basic human spirituality is everyone's need. Whether to mix it with religion can be one's choice. It is not a need. So, in what follows, we will consider in brief how some of the integral principles of the Dalai Lama's secular ethics are rooted in Buddhist ideas and doctrines. The Dalai Lama elevates his theory of secular ethics on two pillars. The first pillar is the recognition of our shared humanity and our shared aspiration to happiness and the avoidance of suffering, and the second pillar is the understanding of interdependence as a key feature of human reality, including our biological reality as social animals. While discussing shared humanity, he includes in it the natural tendency for empathy and compassion. It can be observed here that I am like others and others are like me in terms of the feelings of pleasure and pain, and therefore, one should not harm others, is very much a Buddhist idea. As Dhammapada says, all tremble at violence, all feel death, all fear death. By putting oneself in the place of another, one should not kill, not cause another to kill. Putting oneself in place of another, that is attanam upamam katva, connotes empathy. The idea that compassion or karuna is natural in human beings can be found in Buddhism in two contexts. According to the doctrine of four sublime attitudes, that is Brahma Vihara, loving kindness, that is Maitri, compassion, that is Karuna, appreciative gladness, that is Mudita, and equanimity, that is Upekha or Upeksha, are the four attitudes which we naturally have towards certain types of beings. The doctrine demands that they need to be made universal. Now, the second place where you can find Karuna as a natural say disposition, according to Mahayana Buddhism, all living beings partake of the Buddha nature, which consists of the qualities such as great loving kindness, that is Maha Maitri, and the great compassion, Maha Karuna. The other pillar of secular ethics is interdependence of all phenomena. It is the reflection of the Buddhist doctrine of dependent arising, that is Pratitya Samutpada. In Shravakayana, the doctrine refers to causal dependence. In Mahayana, particularly in Madhyamika Buddhism, the doctrine assumes a more general sense which includes mutual relativity. It assumes the form of interdependence of all phenomena. The Dalai Lama holds that the human nature is essentially good. This reminds us of the Buddhist principle that the mind is intrinsically luminant. The impurities come from outside. Since interdependence is a global phenomenon, my pleasure and pain become interconnected with pleasures and pains of all beings. Hence, my concern for happiness does not remain the concern for my individual happiness, but that for the happiness of all. This leads the Dalai Lama to the notion of universal responsibility or global responsibility that we all have. The idea of global responsibility is very much rooted in the Mahayana concept of Bodhisattva ideal. Mahayana rejects the Arhat ideal of Shravakayana Buddhism, according to which one is ultimately concerned with complete cessation of one's own suffering. As against this, Bodhisattva, as conceptualized by Mahayana Buddhism, takes the vow that he or she will not attain one's own liberation until all beings in the universe are liberated. The second part of the book is entitled Educating the Heart through Training the Mind. In this part, the Dalai Lama introduces and discusses different aspects and methods of moral and spiritual education. They are to a large extent rooted in the Buddhist ethics, moral psychology, and the theories of meditation. The principles which he introduces and discusses, such as mindfulness, awareness, ethic of virtue, ethic of altruism, dealing with destructive emotions, patience, forbearance, generosity, and joy of giving, all are rooted in the Buddhist moral psychology. Under the title Some Formal Practices, he emphasizes focused attention, that is concentration meditation, present moment awareness, that is mindfulness meditation, cultivation of positive mental attitudes, namely loving kindness, compassion, rejoicing in the example of others, and cultivation of equanimity. In other words, the four Brahma Viharas, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita and Upeksha. Though in this way the Dalai Lama's formulation of secular ethics is largely rooted in Buddhist ideas and doctrines, he does not present them as Buddhist ideas and doctrines, rather he transforms them into universal humanist ideas and doctrines by corroborating them with scientific observations and findings. This amounts to taking the Buddhist insights outside the religious framework and making them really universal and global. So, thank you very much for your patient hearing.